And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Dr. Pontea Dianati, spiritually gifted healer and doctor of psychology who had a near-death experience during sinus surgery, which we're going to learn about and more. Dr. Dianati, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's start on the day that you had that NDE and go from there.
Okay, so basically I was in the hospital to have sinus surgery, and I just had a feeling like something was going to go wrong that day. You know, my intuition was telling me. So before they put me under, I prayed to God and I just said, like, I surrender what happens to you. Whatever happens today, I surrender it to you, kind of thing. And then when I got out of the sinus surgery, I remember like I did not feel well at all. Like my brain was swollen, my face was swollen, and there was all these liquids coming out of my nose for 3 days. And I just was like in intense pain, rolling on the floor, basically. And finally, they took me to the ER after I sneezed and something cracked in my head, basically. And when we went to the ER, they were like, oh, you're fine. It's nothing, just sinus stuff. But then they did a CT and they saw there was like a bunch of bubbles in my brain, basically air bubbles. So obviously something had cracked and air had gotten in. So I ended up staying in the hospital for 6 days after that. And in the middle of that time, I left at some point and I went on the other side. I was just like in so much pain and I was crying from the pain. And so I went to the other side. And when I went to the other side, it felt like very familiar to me. It felt like it was all people there that I knew. I call it the land of the dancing gods. And it was kind of like, you know, they were all in different places and they were all dancing in their own form and just being like their essence. And yeah, so that was kind of when I went there. And then there were some messages that was said when I was there.
Well, what were the messages that were said?
So when I first got there, I heard God's voice and I didn't see God's face. That's, I think, important to mention. I heard his voice, which was the same voice I'd been hearing kind of my whole life since I was a kid. But in the NDE, it was like proven for me finally that it was the same voice, right? So I heard his voice and he said like, he knew I'd been sick for a long time. And so he said, you can stay here if you want. He said, like, you can just come home. It's okay. Like you're enough. You're ready. And he said, but, you know, if you go back, you'll be able to help with all the stuff that's to come for all the light workers and earth and stuff like that. And I remember like thinking for a moment that I was kind of like, no, I just wanted to go because it was so happy. Everybody was dancing and I wasn't in pain finally after so many years of being in so much pain. But then I kind of thought about some things and then I came back into the hospital room and yeah. And then continue to kind of have talks with God after that and how to handle the medical situations and stuff.
So when you say the land of the dancing gods, are you saying that you were seeing other beings like us there celebrating and having fun?
Yeah, it just looked like because I'd studied spirituality before and I knew there was many heavens. And my thought before this near-death experience was that we're all going to go to the heaven that's in our own energetic consciousness kind of thing, you know? And so when I went there, I was like, it felt like heaven because everybody was so happy. There was no worry. Everything was just really blissful. And I was recognizing familiar energies like, oh, that kind of looks like Buddha, or that kind of looks like Shiva, or that kind of looks like, you know, one of the Vedic masters I've known for so long. And so Divine Mother, I was seeing all these different beings that I'd known for so many years. It felt like, but then God's voice was there and it was very like in my ear, very loving, very calming, just like a divine father source, very deep peace feeling, you know?
Did the environment look like you were in the light or in the clouds?
Environment just looked like a lot of mountains. And the best I can explain it is everybody was kind of like on their own mountain. So it looked like a giant world where everybody was kind of like in their own mountain and they were dancing on top of it. And I don't remember seeing a lot of light. I just remember seeing like a lot of joy. And what's weird is that ever since then, when I came back from my NDE, I've just been very joyful. Even in like the hardest times of my life, I'm always giggling, which is very silly. And I don't understand it. I'm like, how can I be in this much pain and be giggling? But that was kind of like the gift that stayed with me, was that joy, like dancing of the gods feeling.
You mentioned that you had heard God throughout your life.
Mm-hmm.
When did it start, and was the catalyst to it starting a prior NDE or something else that happened to you?
when I look back, like I kind of go back to my childhood, my original trauma that happened, like sexual trauma when I was just 4 years old, which kind of opened me up to seeing the underworld, right? So I suddenly could see the underworld, I could see the shadow of people. And but then suddenly I was also very obsessed with God as a little girl. And I would go to the mosque and stay up all night praying. My parents were at home, you know. So I was like, I wanted to get close to God. When that dark thing happened to me, it was almost like, I don't know, something inside of me. And then I could feel something guiding me. Like it was a lot of intuitive things looking back from then to now that has led me to this point now. And it was always the same voice. There was also like other beings that have come to help me, but God's voice was different, and the feeling he gives was different. And not like he's always talking. So it's a lot different than like our higher self that's always talking to us, you know?
After your NDE, did you note that you had any new abilities that you didn't have prior?
Yeah, my abilities completely changed, I have to say, after my NDE. Because before my NDE, I was an empath, I was a healer for many years, that kind of stuff. But after my NDE, it was like very different. Like I could see so deep into people. I could see like all the knots like in their aura and where it was coming from. And it just got like more intense. Everything got more intense. My feelings got more intense. And then I didn't have doubt, right? So before my NDE, when I was talking to God in session, praying for people, that kind of stuff, there was still a part of me that had doubt. Like, what if this voice I've been hearing my whole life wasn't real? Right? Like I didn't really know for sure. It could have been my imagination. Like I was a psych major, right? So I was very scientific. I'm like, this could have all been a placebo. I could have just been imagining the whole thing. But then when I went to the other side and I heard him and I felt him, which I think is a more important thing, like the love I felt from God was the same love I felt all these years I was sick. I would feel God holding my hand, that kind of stuff. And so then after that, in my sessions, when I would get messages for people, I knew, like, I didn't really have doubt anymore. Before I was like, is that really the right message for them? Maybe I should be dowsing or this kind of stuff. But no, it was like a direct connection to God. And it was kind of like a laser. So it just didn't go away since then.
Did you get your PhD before or after your NDE?
I got it before my ND.
So prior to your NDE, were you more academic and would think like a lot of this woo-woo stuff was just nonsense?
I think I was like always half-half, I was always like very scientific because I had to do all the research and write a PhD, that kind of stuff, right? Like all these research I had to read and prove theories and kind of stuff. But then there was also part of me that was always like, oh, well, where did I see that bird there that day when that thing happened? Or I was just like all these coincidences, like Carl Jung talks about. There was too many synchronicities that didn't make sense with my science mind, right? But I had this science mind. And yeah, when people would come to me, it was much more like planned out. Like I would see a client, I would plan out what we're going to do. But now it's just everything in the moment. In the session, I just see whatever happens. So it's very different.
How do we determine, all of us, if something's really a coincidence or just a cognitive bias?
Yeah, it's really important, I want to say, because I think like we could totally make ourselves go crazy trying to kind of put things together. But usually when it's a clear sign from God, there won't be fear with it. It'll be like a very loving, peaceful feeling. Like you'll see a bird and you'll just have a good feeling your day is going to go well. It won't be like this, very like, oh my God, like paranoia, like when light workers have paranoia, I tell them like, oh, this person's thinking about me. I can feel their energy. I'm like, let that stuff go, because we're all living in this like live field and we're all feeling all kinds of energy. So most of it should be ignored, is what I would say. Unless it's something that feels very peaceful and clear and it's repetitive, like it happens 3 times continuously, then God or your guides or your galactic guides, like somebody's trying to get your attention. Or if you're sitting in your room and you suddenly hear a noise, So they have all kinds of different ways of getting our attention. But it's not going to be obsessive. It's not going to be dark oriented. It's not going to be fear based. If there's a danger coming, they're going to send you a dream, or they're going to like, you're going to be driving, you're going to hear suddenly stop. So the danger stuff, they'll come in like right before it happens or give you some kind of a warning in a dream usually. So we shouldn't be believing everything. Yeah.
That's fascinating that warnings usually come in dreams.
Mm-hmm. For people that are open to that ability, and we can all have that ability if we just do dream work. Carl Jung did dream analysis with everybody, right? But yeah, I always like pray, like if I have an important thing going on, I'm like, please send me a message. If there's something I need to know about this event, send me a message. And depending on the dream I have, I know, what kind of a day I'm going to have or what kind of event it's going to be. And it's just working on our psychic abilities, right? Like, because a lot of us have these abilities, but how do we develop them? How do we, become Jedis?
Since stuff is coming in dreams before it happens, do you
Mhm.
feel like things have already been played out?
Yeah, I mean, everybody says time is just is a now moment, right? So I do think dreams are kind of just preparing us mentally for what is already going to happen. But sometimes the purpose of a prophecy is to stop what's going to happen. So prophecy sometimes is truth, but sometimes it's to stop what's coming. So we have to determine what kind of dream is it. Like, let's say you have a dream of somebody dying. Does that mean that person is going to die? Or does that mean that you can prevent a death if you help them with something?
Hmm.
That's important to develop our abilities to feel that. Yeah.
How can you tell which can be stopped and which can't?
I think, yeah, like that's what I mean. Like I would be able to know intuitively in my body. I would ask the question, is this person dying? Are they not dying? And my body, certain signals I've trained it would tell me if they are dying. Also, you can look at a person's eyes. When people are dying, their eyes will start to look different, like if they're dying from illness.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. You were born in America, then you lived in Iran, then you're back here in the US.
Yeah.
You obviously have grown up in some sort of Islamic culture.
Mhm.
What would you say is your religious slash spiritual beliefs?
Now I would say I believe in all the religions because I believe there's one God and I believe he's talking to us through all the messengers. And so that's my religion now. But growing up, I was in an Islamic country. I would go to the mosque, I would study Sufism, and I would hear all the stories about like Noah and Moses and Jesus. And I loved those stories as a little girl. I was like, my dad would take me to like his friends' houses and they would tell these stories. I was always fascinated with spirituality, but all of it. Like I was like interested in the characters and I was like, how are they so patient? Like, how did Noah do that? It's just kind of interesting, right? So yeah, that was kind of my path growing up. I was always interested. And then as I got older, I got into Vedic spirituality, meditation, that kind of stuff. And yeah, energy work, which I think is also a part of my spiritual path. Yeah.
Do you think that modern psychology is coming around to this stuff?
They're trying to, they're having a hard time because that book they have with all the disorders, a
Mhm.
lot of spiritual people could be in there. But when I look at spiritual people, to me, I'm just like, oh, it's beautiful, their imagination. I don't think psychotic. So there is people that have disorders, obviously, and they're struggling. But a lot of spirituality goes into disorders still because, it's not like automated. They want people going 9 to 5 jobs doing the same thing. When people are out of the box, they're having visions or they're seeing ghosts, like that goes out of their box and they don't know how to contain that. So it's a little scary for them. When I worked in clinics, I often had clients that saw ghosts and I would tell the psychiatrist and them, I'm like, hey, this client's really seeing ghosts. And they're like, nope, and I'm like, okay, like the kid's not psychotic. I can tell he's fine, so.
If someone's hearing voices and
Mhm.
they even ask the question, am I going crazy or am I really hearing voices? By just asking that question, does that mean that they're usually not crazy?
Exactly. That's like a good sign. When you don't believe all the voices is a good sign. Exactly. People that are really crazy, like they really think they're Batman and they go and jump off buildings, like bless their hearts. But when people are just spiritual, they're trying to figure things out. Like, did I see an angel? Did I not see an angel? Was that my mom's ghost in the room? Not. Like, that's more like your spiritual curiosity. And God wants us to have that. God has made this earth like full of spiritual mystery for us to discover. It's kind of how I see it now.
Do you think that
So
we're getting signs all the time and we just dismiss them because we are worried that we're going to be crazy?
I think people that are open are ignoring their signs because a lot of time I see light workers when they feel stuck or something is not moving. I notice they're not listening to their signs. I'm like, well, what are all these signs that have been coming through for you to take action on this or try this new thing or do this? And they're like, no, but da da da. I'm like, but that's why you're stuck. So the signs are like meant to get us to do the new things that our guides and God and wants us to do.
I noticed you use the word light worker quite
Mhm.
often. How do you define it?
A light worker to me is like a group of beings that are trying to do good for the planet at this time. And they can be in all categories. They can be in education, they can be on, they can be in medical field, they can be in science, they can be in nature. They're just people that like want to do good for the planet and like to help humanity. It's like inherently in them since they were little kids, but now those are like the light workers on the planet.
Would you also combine a light worker as being a star seed?
Yeah, because stars are full of light, right?
Right.
The light workers, when they're doing their light work, they radiate, so they radiate more of their light and that's why they're all meant to be star seeds. My theory on this is that star seeds came to the planet to shine their light, but that literally just means share your knowledge, because light just means knowledge. So whatever is your gift that you've been given, everybody has their own gifts, then yeah.
Hmm. So if we get back to your illness, it
Mhm.
sounds like perhaps you had some kind of skull fracture or something when you sneezed, or maybe something happened. Did you ever consider taking legal action?
Yeah, so I was obviously like I was very sick after that, even worse. So I was already kind of sick for 5 years, level 10 pain, 3 to 5 days a week, like rolling on the floor. So 5 days, then the surgery happened. Everything got worse, basically. So it was like the pain was still there, but now I had all these inflammations in the nervous system. I still had to work, all this stuff. And so I was like, should I sue this doctor? Like, I have a case. And I did get signs from the angels. They even sent me a lawyer, which had the name of a goddess that I was connected to. So I was kind of like given options. And then I talked to God about it just in meditation. And he said, if you sue them, he said, it's going to make your heart not pure anymore because you're going to get revenge. Yes, this person did do something wrong. They literally cracked your head and your liquids came out. He is wrong. But an eye for an eye leaves us all blind. So if we don't start forgiving, the karma of the planet is never going to dissolve. So it was kind of like we get a lot of conversations like that, and I just kept saying like, are you sure? Like I was like, is that my like, I'm trying to be too nice, or I'm like, should I sue them? Should I get justice? That kind of feeling. But God was just very firm on like no revenge. No revenge. Even when he's like he probably made a mistake and you can forgive him. So it was like, and it was hard because being so sick and in so much pain and financially having so many bills, it was like I had to let go of the money. And God kept telling me, he's like, that's dirty money. The kind of money you get in a way that's not pure, it's always going to bring you more problems. And that's an Islamic thing I had learned as a kid, dirty money versus clean money.
That's fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so halal, haram. So halal means something is pure and haram means it's not pure. So let's say like, I go and I sue someone, like I'm really torturing that person for the next 8, 9 months. They have to worry about court. It's going to affect their work. Like he's not going to be able to help others as much. So I'm putting so much dark energy on their life, right? To correct the wrong they did to me. That was probably a mistake. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe because a part of me was like, he should have known if he cracked my face during surgery, especially he's one of the best surgeons in San Diego. But even though he was lying, like I still wanted to forgive him. A part of me I was like, even if he's lying, I still want to forgive him. And so if I hadn't done that, maybe for a couple of years, I would have been dealing with that. Maybe I would have got millions, few $1 million, something like that. But I would have lost my heart connection with God, which is what I feel like I worked my whole life to have a connection with God that was very pure. And God talks to us in our heart, usually. Like in Anubis and in Egyptian gods, when you go to the underworld, like they weigh your heart to see if it's as light as a feather. It's like an ancient Egyptian thing. So God was like, you have to keep your heart light. When you put revenge in there, when you're like calculating things, like all these dark energies, your heart gets heavy. And then we can't go to the new world, which is the fifth dimension.
Do you think there are a lot of dark energies or shadow energies on the planet right now?
Oh, yeah, yeah. A lot of different kinds.
How do they manifest?
How do they manifest? Well, they feed on our pain. So they feed on our trauma. So if you think about how much trauma all of humanity has, right? They literally are like vampires. So there's like a demon that feeds on sadness. There's a demon that feeds on guilt. There's a demon that feeds on worry. And then they come and they trigger us. So there's demons, which are like fallen angels. So they're like angels that chose to go and do selfish things instead of doing the will of the creator, essentially. Then there's the jinns, which are not all evil. The jinns in Islam are described to be not good, fire beings, but they're actually ancient beings that were on the planet before us. And they're like family, they have families like us, you know? But there was a war between them and humans for a while, but now there's been a peace treaty of some sort. So they're not messing with us, but the jinns and the demons can work together. That's why I mention it. Like oftentimes when I'm working with someone and I see like a demon, I can see there's a jinn, and the demon has captured the jinn to do something bad to the human. So that's some aspect of it. Then there's dark ETs, right? Like the reptilians that are hurting the children and eating them underground, right? And so there's ETs, there's that. There's also ghosts that are stuck on the planet that are, you know, not happy ghosts, let's say, because usually if a ghost doesn't move on, it's probably because there's something going on. You know, they're either unfinished or they're angry or something. So they get attached to people that have the same trauma as them. If a ghost is angry, it'll attach to people that live in that house that are angry, and it'll act through them. Yeah.
Some of the people in the UFO world, I believe, think that the ETs have always been here. They're not coming from somewhere else. They're here with us, maybe in an unseen dimension. Would you agree
Yeah,
with that?
for sure.
But some people do still see ships or lights or something. What would those be?
Well, look, I think they can show us themselves when they want. They have that ability to show the ship or not. You know, I've seen their ships in meditation. I don't think I've ever seen an actual physical ship in front of me. But I have seen the Arcturian ships above my head before, you know, and that was when I was meditating in a mountain that has portals to these beings, right? But yeah, I do think they show us themselves like when we're ready or if we ask to, and we have a connection to them. A lot of my clients talk about it when they come here. Like I saw the grays in my room the other night. One of them was really scared about that. So I had to teach him how to kind of put boundaries and ask them not to come.
Hmm. How can we establish our own connection with God and have communication?
My advice would be like the path of devotion. Like they say in yoga, there's 5 paths to God. Like there's knowledge, there's this. Devotion is like when like God becomes the center of your life. Like everything for God. Like I wake up in the morning, I'm talking to God, you know, I'm doing my work, I'm surrendering it to God. I let people pay me what they can afford, I'm surrendering it to God. Everything is living, breathing, everything for God. And that's the path of devotion. But one of my teachers said it's too hard for people in the modern world, you know, because people are living modern human lives. But I'm living modern human life. I just kind of embed God into everything. And it does talk about it in certain books. Like service won't bring you to God, but like wanting to be best friends with God will bring you to God, not service. Because a lot of people are doing service. And you know, it's like they're trying to be helpful, be good people, that kind of stuff. And God loves that. But if you want to have a relationship with God, it's more like building an actual relationship. Like when we have a romantic relationship or a friendship, we're building that. So it's the same with God.
But do you need to do meditation or get in some sort of trance to have the actual communication?
Well, I think like for me, like before, my dad did teach me meditation when I was a little girl, you know, to help me with the medical pains I was having. So I would sit under a golden waterfall, which now I know is source. You know, he's like a golden waterfall. So you could just sit and under a golden waterfall and just hold the intention to connect to God. And that would be simple enough to start. Obviously, it's good to get meditation training like Kriya and things like that would be wonderful because they're more intense and more refining your energy systems. But if you just want to start simply, I would do that. Like sit under a golden waterfall and from your heart, just tell God, like, I want to have a relationship with you. Are you real? Please come here. Be very authentic. Don't try to be spiritual. Just be yourself. And just say, I really sincerely want to have you more in my life. And then ask him to send you signs. Say, if you are in my life, send me signs that I can follow.
And what are those signs that are common?
It depends on like your intelligence style. So God communicates to everybody based on how they understand. So if you're like a very mathematical person, you start seeing random numbers that can't be or something like that. You know, so he kind of makes it out there so you get shocked. Or if you're a nature person, you might see 3 falcons flying above your head that day, you know. So if you're like a scientific person, suddenly you might have like a miraculous discovery and heal somebody. So he'll inspire you, he'll talk to you through nature, he'll send numbers. You might just start crying. That's the most my favorite one. Sometimes you'll just have a happy tears. It just pours out of your eyes without even thinking about it. When if you really try to connect to God from your heart chakra and your mind chakra. Yeah, so a lot of different ways.
In your opinion, what's the best way to protect yourself from the shadow energies, the dark energies that are out there?
Yeah, so your aura, the cleaner your aura is, the less holes they have to plug into. So regular energy work on yourself or with somebody, also doing your trauma work. So you get rid of your own shadow, not like get rid of it, but understand your own shadow, because the shadow energies are going to come and they're going to come and talk to your shadow and trick your shadow into doing something that would sabotage you, for example. So know your shadow. Carl Jung would say that knowing your own darkness is the best way to deal with other people's darkness. And then you have to do energy work. So that gold waterfall would be enough. Bring it into all of your body and just every day ask, please cleanse me of all my trauma energies. But you have to feel them. So if sadness comes up, you have to feel it. If you numb the energy, it means you're suppressing it, and then it becomes food for the demons again. It has to be felt and come out. That's why these cathartic stuff that people are doing is really good. Breath work, meditation, yoga. But you can't run away from the shadow. A lot of people think like if we just focus on the light and positivity, all these things are going to go away, and they won't. I'm sorry to say that. Um, yeah, but yeah, and also your house, like, using stuff to clean the house. Don't have stuff in the corners. They love dirty corners. These like weird energies. They gather in corners when there's clutter and stuff too.
What would you clean your house with?
I would clean it like with like, like sage water, maybe, you could like spray the counters with sage water. On the ground, you could do the same thing. You could use Palo Santo, the tree from South America, and do corner to corner of your house. Make sure all the corners above the ceiling and below are clean, like the corners of your house, like a cube. So if you do the smoke all around the house and use whatever prayer is comfortable for you, like whatever religion, spirituality you are, call that in and ask it to help you clean the house. And when your house is clean, you should feel calm in it. Most empaths, if there's weird stuff in your house, you're going to feel anxiety and heaviness.
If we go back to a person's shadow energy,
Mhm.
can you describe what that is a little deeper?
Yeah, so it's like it's all of us have our animalistic self, right? Like the part of us that we have to be like, don't get angry, or like don't do this, or don't misuse your senses, don't say anything, hear anything, look at something. So it's like all of our animalistic selves. And then on top of it, it has all of our traumas that we've been through as defense mechanisms. So let's say you were like a kid and somebody told you, don't do this. Now, as an adult, whenever somebody tells you, don't do this, your shadow self is going to come out to protect you. So it can be tame, like a jaguar sitting next to you, or it can be like a black dragon that just everybody you meet, you're criticizing them, you're mean to them. So your shadow, you should tame it, and then it becomes your power. But if it's not tamed, it's just gonna ruin your relationships, get into arguments with people. So everybody has a shadow self, and we shouldn't judge it. We have to love it and understand it the way we would like a stray dog. If it was like bleeding and not doing well, how would we kind of get it to trust us again? That's kind of like our shadow. And it comes out in all kinds of relationships, in work relationships, in romantic relationships, friendships. And in the world, there's collective shadows, right? So this group against this group. And those shadows have a consciousness. They're not just like clouds of smoke. They actually have a consciousness.
How much of our behavior do you think is based on our past traumas and reflexes versus who we truly are if we could remove all that?
Yeah, I think, yeah, a lot of it is based on our past, unfortunately, for most of us, I think, because we're all healing our traumas. But yeah, I think maybe like 80% from the past, 20% like our real self. The more for me, how I measure it is the more I act like when I was in elementary school, I'm just happy doing my creativity, I'm playing with my friends, and that's like our natural self, you could say. But when we come like, very adult and we just go into this other world, we aren't really being our God self anymore, because our God self is very lighthearted and playful, and all the qualities that God has described, like that's our God self that we all have.
Do you think that by the time we are adults that we've accumulated so much baggage that even when we try to release and be natural, we really don't like who we are or the things we do, and we're constantly filtering ourselves?
Yeah, because it's all in the underworld part of us, right? Like it's in the subconscious mind, which is the bottom part of the ocean. So we've suppressed it. We've just been like, okay, I'm just gonna go do this today and da da da. I'm not gonna think about this. I'm not gonna think about this. But it's like if you're making like soup and there was a bunch of crap on the bottom of it, the soup wouldn't taste good, right? So you're not gonna feel good because there's stuff shift there. That's why energy work or stuff where you're going to the DNA, clearing the trauma there, then it's like you feel lighter, you feel different. Because it is really there. It's not like our imagination. But there's a lot of different ways to kind of speed it up, you could say. But there's also certain processes we all have to go through to cleanse, purify, which is what ascension means.
Yeah, because I feel like if there some sort of technique or something that you can do that you can remove all that stuff. So when you are not filtering yourself, you actually are this, pure being, light and good.
Yeah, there's totally I see it as like imagine like our aura is like an egg and it's like a giant gold egg around all of us. Some people's is 5, 7 feet, 7 feet, 10 feet, whatever. And that egg is full of experiences we've had. Like, and you can actually see it, like clairvoyant people, but there's like a bubble and it'll be like a memory from when you were 7 or like a memory from 130,000 years ago lifetime. Because some of us have lifetimes that are that old. And so when we cleanse those, it's like that egg gets full of source energy. So then when we're being source, we're just being ourselves, natural and harmony. We probably would just go naturally towards nature. So, but when those things are there, they need food. So then they're gonna like, if there's a trauma when you were like, whatever, guilty, shame, sadness, whatever, that's gonna look for food in the world. So it's gonna more find reasons to trigger that so it can feed on it. And then your aura will feel heavy, even if you're not heavy at all, just it's your energy.
I'm not sure how clinical you were, but do you think that a person needs to go back and review those memories and understand them and then release them versus someone just doing energy work on you from the outside?
I think you need a combination of both, because I think for myself, I had so many traumas and I had to kind of do a little bit of both, I would say, like I had to do like the writing down everything about myself so I could see my shadow. Like I had to understand my shadow and my light. But if somebody would have just done it for me, maybe I would have felt peaceful, but I don't think I would have known myself. I had to know all of me. And so I think that's the more spiritual looking at it. It's like trauma happens for a purpose. None of our traumas happen by accident, usually, right? So if a trauma happened to me in this lifetime, it means something happened in another lifetime that had to be cleared. So in this lifetime, it had to happen for it to clear. So I think a combination of both. But a lot of it you don't have to remember. Like if it's really painful, you don't have to go into the full memory. You can just say like that memory at that place and just, tap it till you feel like your body's response to it goes lower and lower and lower. Sometimes I've seen people spiritually just have things removed, like by praying, like they ask for a pain to be removed and the pain is removed. Seems to be different for everybody. I wouldn't say at all. I don't think it's one size fits all when it comes to healing.
Why do you think we come here over and over again?
I think like we're trying to learn, like we're supposed to graduate, And so I think once we learn the lessons, we graduate. And the lessons is like literally forgive everyone. That's like so important because everything is pre-contracted. But I do think it's that. I think we have to graduate. And I have had visions before, once of like these universities that are around the earth, like they call them higher realm universities, which we all go and study at night sometimes. So they're located in different mountaintops and I'm not going to say where or whatever, but just because, but you guys can research it and you'll find it. And so I do think we're going to different universities, all the souls on the planet and studying different things while we're on the planet too.
If you had a friend that was suffering over the loss of a loved one, what kind of advice would you give?
Yeah, so the immediate thing usually I do with people when they lose someone is to teach them how to talk to them, basically, because I think the biggest shock is that they're really gone and we have no connection to them. And that's what usually gets people. So I usually teach them, I'm like, okay, put this kind of amethyst, put an amethyst crystal next to your ear, basically your head at night when you're sleeping. It should be like a good size like this. And I've tested this with people that are atheists and it still works. So this is kind of like proven and true and you tune the amethyst, you say, help me to open up my medium abilities. Because all of us can have that ability, just like a telephone. So I teach them that, and then they usually start having dreams about them and they start talking to them again. So I think that's really important. First, establish a connection. That's one way. I also recommend Fridays cooking a meal for them and lighting a candle and inviting them. That seems to be the day spirits like to come. I mean, obviously this is generalized, but Fridays would be good. And you set an appointment. Like if somebody like you love, you say, hey, I'm going to be here Friday. I'm going to cook your favorite food. Please show up. then you assume they're going to show up every Friday, and you just keep doing it. And if you're really psychic, you might feel it. Like you might feel the energies come in the room. Some of you might have numbed it out for many years, so it might take some time again. But put your left hand out, and I usually ask the spirit, like, please hold my hand. And usually you'll feel them holding your hand, like a heat or like a sensation. It should feel strong, not just like a wind, but you'll feel something. And it should be the left hand, because that's our receiving hand. So dream work with them, having an altar for them, not worshiping the spirit, obviously, but just cooking food for them, like a friendship every Friday, seeing them. And then actually feeling their energy, because that's another thing people say they miss a lot when somebody they love dies, is they don't get to hug them. Like it's like that's what they miss the most, because you can talk to them, but you can't feel them. So the hand thing at least helps you to have some kind of physical connection, that they're not really gone.
You said an amethyst about this size?
Yeah, like the size of your head. It
Where
should
do you
cover your
get one that size?
everywhere. They have them everywhere,
Oh wow, I guess I haven't looked into it.
Yeah, yeah, you can find it for sure. No worries. Yeah.
Now, some people may say that when you're doing stuff like that, you may be inviting dark energies or negative spirits as well. So, what do you do to prevent them from getting involved?
Yes, that's really important. Having our spiritual boundaries is super important. That's why I don't recommend people just go to the other side or do these kind of things, because you can pick up all kinds of guests, let's say, right? So yeah, like I would definitely pray, however is your protection prayer in your religion, and put the protection around the whole house or the space you're in. And you say, I only allow energies to come in that work with the light. I only allow in energies. And you don't want to be like forceful or like timid. You want to just be kind of firm when you say it, and then energetically visualize either a pyramid, one upside up and one upside down, or you can do a circle if you want, or you can just ask whatever geometric shape is best for this moment, for the highest protection. And then say, now I call forward like my uncle's soul to come through, And so you always set the protection. That should be something we do every day. I think just like in the morning, you wake up, do your meditation, and then set a protection around your house, around your business, around your kids, around your partner. And you can do it with different colors and elements, and you'll know what it is. Like I help people, but you can figure it out intuitively, whatever feels good for you. And yeah, so then you do it, then you call them in. And then you actually, once the spirit goes, you have to actually close the portal after, and just say, now I close that portal. You can just call in Archangel Michael or one of your galactic guides and say, hey, please close this portal so nothing else comes through. If you are dealing with really dark energies, Arcturians are experts for that. So call in the Arcturians when you're dealing with really dark energies. They're kind of like very powerful exorcists. But they don't kill them. They blast them with love.
So, you're saying that there are dark energies around us in an unseen realm that are living off our fears, anger, negativity, and all this is real.
Yeah. I know. I'm sorry to say that to people sometimes, but one of my psychiatrist I met, Dr. Robert Alcorn, so he's like a shaman that believes in all this stuff, and he has a book. And he said, I asked him, I said, like, why are all spiritual people always kind of scaring away from this? Because when I first met them at a symposium, him and his wife were talking about these things, and like 80% of spiritual people walked out of the room. And I just was surprised. Like, why don't people want to know this? Like, this is important. And I went up to Dr. Alcorn and I said, like, he said, if there was a thief in your house, would you want to know, or would you want to go under a blanket? He said, like, we have to be trained, all of us, in dealing with this. And then, yeah, and I think that honestly, to me, that's one of the things that's really missing from all of our light worker community star seeds is we don't have, like, we all meditate, we all do all these cool things, but not all of us know how to deal with these beings, and it's creating division amongst all of us. That's another thing they do, is they create division. Like demons aren't always with a horn, they're more like psychological. They're like sociopaths, so they're causing fights between Susie and Sarah. So they don't do this project of healing summit or something like that. That's why we have to be aware of them, because they'll get less and less. And a lot of big ones have already left the planet, I was told. So a lot of the really big ones have been dealt with, but there's still enough of them around.
I think some people would say is that if God is the source and God is love, then how would all this exist? How is it even possible?
Because God loves all of us so much, he gives us free will. And that's the free will. Then they choose to do evil with it. And so that's a law in the universe, is the law of free will. And that's why when they do evil on the planet, they have to tell us, like we have to sign consent forms and things like that, right? Like if we're eating something bad or whatever bad is happening to us, they make us consent. So evil has this thing where I can only hurt you if I tell you and you agree to it. And we don't know what we're agreeing to, like when a person has trauma and they suddenly summon a shadow being, they don't know they're doing that. They're protecting themselves. Maybe God forbid a man or a woman is getting sexually abused and they summon a being to come and protect them in that moment. They don't know what they're calling on. They're just scared in the moment and they ask for help. And then this being goes, oh yeah, I'll come and help you. And then it stays with them for 40 years and they have this crazy depression that never goes away. Sometimes I've seen when demonic stuff is removed from people, like their personality changes completely because all these demons are operating out of their personality.
So are you saying that we get notified during our pre-birth contract that we're coming to a realm full of demons and dark energies?
I mean, I don't know. I think we know because we've all been here so many times and the earth has been dark now for a while. We're just about going into the golden age now, right? So we've had kind of like this age of darkness for a while. So I think, and that's why we're all here. We're all here so that the light kind of keeps expanding. But I think that's why we came, I think there was like a call that went out and a bunch of starseeds were like, yeah, we'll go, we'll help, but we like to joke that like the brochure they showed us, they were showing us like Hawaii and waterfalls. They weren't showing like all the demons in the oceans that are like octopuses that are the size of like 20 feet, So there's all kinds of different beings of dark, but there's also beings of light. Angels are very big, they're bigger than demons, I would say. She like the seraphim and stuff like that.
Has the memories of your NDE faded over time?
I feel like it hasn't for some reason because I kind of think it's faded, but then when I go into it, it kind of comes back again, and it's like the same little real place for me again. You know, I just like I feel like even after I came back from it, when I was in the hospital for a few days, I felt like I kept having spiritual experiences happen. Like I felt like I saw the Divine Mother show up, and she was talking to me, and so it was like, and then since then, all the people I've met that have helped me, like the doctors and stuff, the few that are helping me right now, they're very God doctors. Like they all are the same. Like they pray before session and they're very like super intense human beings. So it was kind of like everything since then changed and it kind of stayed with that realm of me hanging out with some really special souls on the planet.
Do you think that generally feminism or the divine feminine has been suppressed for a long time and women are finally getting their power back?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Especially if you look at places like Iran, what happened last year where they were trying to fight and they were killing all these women just for showing their hair, showing like wanting to have a boyfriend and hold their hand. They were blinding these. They blinded so many youths last year and they're fighting in the streets. So that's just one example we can look at and see like how the darkness is suppressing the feminine. Like why can't they show their hair? Why can't they dance? They're not even allowed to dance in the street. They're not allowed to sing. It's almost like capturing a canary because the feminine is like, yeah, like the feminine is meant to be protected and celebrated all over the earth. And so there's like this war going on against the feminine and masculine are kind of at war, like the dark parts of the two you can say on the planet. But there's a dark masculine that's definitely been suppressing the feminine. And it's kind of happening in different ways all over. But it's not the true masculine, the divine masculine. The divine masculine is very supportive of the feminine. So both of those energies are on the planet, just like there's a dark feminine and a dark and a light feminine.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you with questions. Are you open to that?
Sure, yeah. You can just go to my website and send me a message.
What's your website?
It's soulradiancehealing.com. So soul like the soul and radiancehealing.com. Yeah.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
I just started a YouTube channel this year and I'm interviewing someone like the spiritual healers I've met. And yeah, that's just Hopeful Purpose with Dr. Pontea.
Do you have things that you're working on that you want people to know about?
I'm going to be doing a teacher's like a healing sort of training for people in June if they want to come. It's going to be online. It's going to be a 1-year training that I'm going to train people how to deal with this kind of stuff, if they want to work in this field and do this kind of stuff.
Do you fear death at all?
No, no, because it's so good, like, it's so good after. So I can't fear it because I'm like, oh wow, So yeah, I feel
So,
like it's going to be good. Yeah.
Some people believe that the realm that we live in here is some sort of simulation. What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely think our minds are being controlled all the time, through everything we watch, through everything that we hear around us. So if that's a simulation, yeah, I think if we were all living in nature and villages, we would all be different people. Like, what if we didn't listen and hear all these things that we do, and we were just kind of like being natural? I would be curious for people to kind of try that for like a week or two, just like reduce media and just see how your personality changes, because that's how I know. And 'cause they do it through hypnosis, so there's all kinds of different ways. And I have different theories about it because I've had clients that play video games and their personalities are very interesting. Like the way they react to things, or just it seems like there's a lot of common threads I see amongst them, which makes me feel like they're also being programmed in some ways.
Some people believe that reincarnation is forced.
Mhm.
We're forced to come back over and over again. And it may add to what you're saying is that we're just here to be food for the dark energies. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we have to clear our karma, like we can't get out of it, And karma just means energies that are stuck in our body. Not like karma, like you're bad or good. It's just energies that are in your body that you haven't become fully sourced yet, all of us. If we were sourced already, we wouldn't be here. And so, yeah, it's like that's why this work is so important, because if people don't do it, they do have to come back. And I hope a lot of people can graduate this lifetime, like I'm here to help as many people, all of us together to graduate, and that takes healing the traumas. And then your body becomes golden. In Buddhism, they call it the golden Buddha body, but to me, it's just like the gold waterfall. It comes into our crown, it clears all the past life karma. And then when we die, we don't have to come back. Because why do we come back? Because there's desires. Like, oh, in that lifetime, I didn't become a this, or I didn't get to have this. So when we die, those desires, they cause us to reincarnate, and also the traumas.
That's
So it's really
interesting.
just an energy game. That's kind of how I feel. Yeah.
So, practical tips are meditation, like meditating under a gold waterfall. You would say another one could be try to become desireless.
Yeah. Let go of all desires and attachments to anything in the world, like nothing. That's in the Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is one of my spiritual texts I really love and really helps me with what's happening in the world right now. And so letting go of attachments is, yeah, that's what it says in there. It says if you don't have any attachments or desires, you won't come back. Because you can just be like, okay, I die, I'm complete. I can just go back to source now, But if you're like, no, I want to go back and write that book, it's like, all right, come back, go through all the traumas again, because the earth is like that right now. But we are supposed to be going to the golden age, right? Like 2032, 33, where people are predicting new earth. So, but I do think some people are going to go, some people are not going to go, depending on their heart chakra. I think that Egyptian mythology stuff really resonates for me with the new earth.
I mean, to really become desireless, should we become like a Buddhist monk and renounce everything?
No, like for example, let's say like you like this shirt and you're like, I like this shirt. I'm gonna wear this shirt. But like don't be attached to it if it gets a hole on it or somebody wants to borrow it from you. Like don't be attached to any material objects, even your family. And I don't mean don't love your family, of course, but in your mind, be like, I'm ready to graduate. Even if that means that my family wants to not graduate, I'm okay with me graduating. Because they all have free will choice. So if they want to graduate, they can graduate too. But if you say I want to stay back till everybody graduates, I would not recommend that.
Maybe here forever.
Maybe here forever. And some people have done that. They've taken vows. So those I usually look for people with those kind of vows to remove them, you know.
Well, once we graduate, where do we go next?
So I believe we go to different heavenly realms based on our consciousness. So this heaven of the dancing gods, like when I Googled it, I read some stuff about it. Like other people have mentioned it. And so in the Bhagavad Gita, it does talk about a lot of different heavens. So I believe people go based on who they are, their essence, and who they are. They'll go there. Like if you feel bad when you die, you don't go to hell, but you do go to a lower dimension for a while to process those emotions. There's no hell like punishment and stuff like that. But there's an underworld. Yeah.
And then once you process, you naturally leave.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people say like they felt like they were in the underworld and then they saw the light of Jesus come on them, or they saw the light of the Buddha. Like people say when they're in like the dark night of soul in their life, kind of does feel like being in the underworld. And so spiritual help does come, especially if you pray. Like if you are in those spaces, pray and ask for help. And when you pray, know that it's going to come true. That's the trick. Like if you pray and you're like, it's not going to happen because when I was 6, I didn't get that bicycle. It's like, no, it's different now. Like on the planet, there's a lot of spiritual support in the galactic form and the angelic form, as far as God and the Divine Mother and all this stuff. So the prayer now is like more instantaneous, even I would say. Just like bad karma, if we do something bad, it'll be more instantaneous. Everything is kind of happening a little sped up right now.
Would you say that then not all ETs are from here? They are also from other places?
Yeah, for sure.
Because earlier I mentioned that some people believe that they're, and I guess I didn't say it clearly, that they're all from here only.
No, I think there's a lot of them here, like Graham had a chart that said 22 species of ETs on the planet now. And no, they've come from all kinds of places because I've even done regression and seen myself on other planets living there. So I know it's true, and I've done it with other people. So I think there's hybrid ETs living on the planet, and like they look like humans, and it's kind of like we have different bloodlines mixed together.
Do you think that humans are originally from here?
That's a good question. I never thought about that. Are they originated from here? My intuition says no. My intuition says no, but I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a good question.
Right now, there are about 8 billion of us on the planet, which to me seems like there is more people than ever.
Mhm.
Why do you think that is?
Like, why is there so many people?
Mhm.
And like, in what way you mean? Like, why
I
is there
mean,
so many?
why are there so many beings here? Is
Oh,
there?
like, are they coming to help kind of thing? Well, I
Like,
think a lot of the children that are coming in are souls that are coming to help. I do know that. Like, all the new children being born are like very advanced. Like, so. I don't know as far as why there's so many. I do think a lot of people are going to pass. I don't think there's going to be 8 billion. And I think there's going to be a reduction based on all the stuff that's happened.
do you ever think about how we come here with a purpose, but when we get here, we have amnesia?
Mhm.
So, how are we supposed to fulfill that purpose?
That's the hardest thing, isn't it? Like that's the hardest thing, and that's why the movie The Matrix captures it so well, because it's people that have forgotten their purpose and they're just plugged in and doing that. So yeah, we each come from a different soul ray. So if you're a blue ray versus the green ray, you're gonna be different interests, basically. Like the blue rays are very truth tellers and they're seekers of that. The green rays are like the healers. So then there's the scientist. So if you kind of can do some assessment to figure out which one of the rays you are, and then do some like galactic charts to see your past lives, what you did. That could be a good starting point for like putting it together. And then yeah, I feel like a lot of times people I meet with them, they're kind of like in the 3D, they're in the matrix, and I'm kind of pulling them out. I'm like, let's create like the bridge. And so, yeah, it's like a rescue mission, honestly. This feels like a rescue mission, where people, even spiritual people, are now feeling like they're spiritual, but they're actually more in the spiritual ego, because that's another whole thing. There's the ego, and then there's the spiritual ego too.
If we get back to coincidences, do you think it's no coincidence that the people who are watching these videos are watching them?
No, it can be a coincidence because they're energetically drawn to it. And all these beautiful speakers that are coming on, they all have a message. And it's kind of like that's how God is helping. So sometimes maybe we can't hear God, but God sends people that can send little messages to give us hope to get through a dark time. So, yeah, like the places you're pulled to, go to that because that's where you're going to pick up your messages. Like, I used to tell people I'm like a mail lady, like a post lady, just deliver the letters kind of thing. Yeah. I think that's why they're drawn. They're meant to get messages from all the people that are coming here.
All right, Dr. Donati, before we wrap it up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
The last positive message is that we're going to create the new Earth. I have hope that we're going to do it. There's so many of us on the planet, at least 300 million star seeds on the planet at this time. So if all of us just follow our intuition, love ourselves, and come into our purpose, I believe we are going to be able to create the new Earth. And I think we should hold on to that hope, no matter how dark it gets. Just keep holding on to that hope that it is going to happen, and just do your path, knowing that as we all do it and we all unite, it's going to happen.
Dr. Dianati, thank you for your message and thank you for being a guest.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very grateful to be here.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.